Well, a sweet grandma has a past that is quite shocking. She's been jailed many times, participated in dozens of protests, and was even on the Ku Klux Klan's most wanted list. Tonight we take you inside the story of a woman who stood up for freedom. Dan Rascon joining us live. Dan, who is this amazing woman?
Mark, her name is Joan Mulholland. Not a name you recognize, but in the civil rights movement, her mugshot is pretty well known. A white woman on the front line in the fight for black rights.
"You no good traitor," shouted an angry white man.
Reading from the pages of history.
"You went against your own race."
But for Joan Mulholland,
Joan was taken to cell 14.
this isn't just history.
And started chasing them with a tire iron.
This is her own story 55 years ago.
I guess I did it all.
Wrapped up into two newly published books called She Stood for Freedom.
It's sort of mind-blowing. I mean, who would have thought?
Yes, who would have thought this rosy-cheeked, sweet 75-year-old grandma
There's my mugshot.
got locked up a half a dozen times,
There we are on the picket line in Durham.
participated in some of the most historic protests and sit-ins,
There I am with Dr. King.
walked with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and was even on the most wanted list
You knew you could be killed.
of the Ku Klux Klan.
You're gonna die sometime, rather for some cause than trying to cross the street in rush hour. This is a dress that I wore.
We first met Joan nearly 2 years ago. Back then, she was reading to a group of elementary kids from a book about the civil rights movement.
And they were arrested.
But now, when she shares her story with elementary kids, it's from her own history book,
This was not fair.
written by her son, who thought it would be better for his mom to read from her own words rather than someone else's.
I'm proud of my son. He's keeping the story alive, and that's the important thing, because those who forget history are condemned to repeat it.
The two books are basically the same. One is written for a younger group of kids, the other more comprehensive.
I think when kids actually meet somebody that reading their own story or talking about their own story, it makes a lot more difference than just some reading a textbook.
And the message she hopes to deliver?
I want them to know that you've got to do something about the problems that you see in society, however you see it. And you've got to start doing things.
Joan grew up in Arlington, Virginia. Her great-grandparents were slave owners, and she was always taught that blacks were to be treated different. But that all changed at a young age when she suddenly saw how blacks were treated.
It just was not fair. And that's when I think I reached the internalized the thought that I would do what I could.
When she entered college in the early 60s, she didn't hesitate to get involved in protests. Joan says she was just doing what she learned in Sunday school. Treat others as you want to be treated.
I thought we should practice what we preached.
Today,
It's sort of like, is this me? This old lady did all this?
her life is almost like a dream, but she's honored to say she played a role in change.
Many people say Joan is a hero, but she'll tell you she's not. She says, "I'm as ordinary as they come. I saw something was wrong and decided to do something about it."
Yes, she did. Now, USA Studies Weekly, an education publication, has produced a special issue on Joan and is getting it into schools across the country, along with copies of her book. The nationally published books can also be picked up at Barnes & Noble, Deseret Book, and Amazon. For more on that, go to our website, KUTV.com. Click on features and inside the story. So if you saw her walking down the street, you just would never know.
She says she's ordinary. I say extraordinary.
Exactly.
What a
There you
life.
go. Yeah,
Oh
quite
my
the life.
gosh.
Definite passion in her heart to this day for what she believed in back then. All right, Dan, thanks.
Dan, what a wonderful story. Thank you.